Okay, let's unpack this. That feeling you sometimes get, that almost magnetic pull towards certain people.
Yeah,
It's more than just, thinking someone looks nice or having a quick laugh. There's often something deeper, right?
definitely. And that's really what we're digging into today. We're looking at some, well, really compelling ideas about why that happens, specifically through the lens of Carl Jung.
Right. Jung's take on it.
It's fascinating because he suggests moving beyond just the circus stuff, looks, status, whatever. He thought these feelings often come from somewhere much deeper, tied to our own journey towards psychological wholeness.
Exactly. And that's sort of our mission for this deep dive, isn't it? To explore Jung's ideas on attraction. We've been looking at some really thought-provoking material, and we want to offer you, the listener, maybe a new way to understand your own attractions.
And your relationships, too, those connections that sometimes feel, well, powerful, almost inexplicable.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of about realizing that who we're drawn to can tell us a lot about ourselves, not just about them.
And it ties directly into his bigger idea, individuation.
Ah, right. That lifelong journey he talked about, becoming who we truly are by integrating all the different bits of our personality.
Precisely. And Jung proposed that attraction, that feeling, can actually be a major signpost on that journey.
So it's less about just finding a partner and maybe more about self-discovery. Like when we feel that really strong pull towards someone.
Jung believed it could be because they embody qualities that we often unconsciously need or want to develop in ourselves.
Okay, so think about it. Have you, listening now, ever been really strongly drawn to someone and like you couldn't quite pin down why? Maybe it was their calmness or their, I don't know, their creative spark?
That's a great question to ask yourself. Think about a recent strong attraction. What specific things have really captivated you? Jung might say those qualities are actually lying dormant within you.
Latent potential.
Exactly. Aspects of your own psyche that are kind of asking for attention, wanting to be expressed or integrated. The idea is we often look outside for the balance we really need to find inside.
It's almost like attraction can be a mirror then, reflecting back the parts of our own psychological puzzle that maybe we haven't quite put together yet.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. Not that we're inherently broken or incomplete, but that we have this natural drive towards becoming more whole, and other people can sometimes light up those undiscovered parts of us.
Okay, so seeking these missing pieces, that brings us to the anima and animus, right?
Jung's concepts of the anima, the sort of inner feminine figure in the male psyche, and the animus, the inner masculine figure in the female psyche.
Okay, let's clarify that a bit. It's not strictly about male and female traits in the, stereotypical sense, is it?
Not at all. It's more about these figures representing parts of ourselves that maybe haven't been fully valued or integrated,
Yeah.
often influenced by our upbringing or societal conditioning, that sort of thing.
So the anima might represent things like emotional depth, intuition, maybe creativity.
Right. And the animus could embody qualities like assertiveness, courage, logic, taking initiative, qualities that might have been discouraged or underdeveloped.
Okay, give us an example.
Well, imagine a man who, maybe because of how he was raised or societal pressure, has learned to keep his emotions really buttoned up.
Yeah.
Always logical, very rational on the surface.
Okay.
But deep down, that part of him that longs for, say, emotional connection, or maybe feels a pull towards creativity or tenderness, his anima is still there, just
Yeah.
underdeveloped.
Right.
So when he meets a woman who is very expressive or maybe very nurturing or artistic, he might feel this incredibly powerful draw.
So it's not just about her qualities.
Exactly. She's essentially activating that vital but maybe neglected part within him.
And the flip side for the animus in women.
Same principle. Maybe a woman was taught to always be agreeable, to put others first, not to make waves. She might find herself really drawn to a man who's very decisive, speaks his mind clearly, goes after what he wants.
Because he's stirring her animus, that part of her that wants to find her own voice, be more assertive.
Precisely. It's almost like these attractions can be encounters with what some Dungans call our soul's unlived life. We're drawn to a part of ourselves we lost or never fully developed, and we see it reflected in the other person.
Wow. Okay, so this inner world reflecting the outer, that connects to the shadow too, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The shadow is Jung's term for, well, all the bits of ourselves we tend to reject or deny. The stuff we hide away because we've judged it as bad or embarrassing or somehow unlovable.
And this is the really interesting part. I think Jung didn't see the shadow as purely negative, did he?
Not at all. He believed it's actually packed with untapped potential. Things like raw energy, creativity, spontaneity, even power and sensuality that we just don't own in ourselves.
Which kind of explains the whole opposites attract thing.
Exactly that. Have you ever found yourself intensely drawn to someone who seems completely different from you? Maybe you're super cautious, always plan everything,
Huh.
and you're just mesmerized by someone totally spontaneous, maybe even a bit wild or unpredictable.
Or maybe you're quite shy and reserved, and you're fascinated by someone incredibly bold and outgoing. Yeah, I get that.
Right. You might even consciously think, wow, I could never be like that, or I would never do that, but you can't get them out of your head.
That's the shadow pulling us.
That's how Jung would see it, yes. We're seeing in them those very qualities, the wildness, the boldness that we've pushed down into our own shadow.
So the insight here isn't that we should become that other person.
No, not at all. It's about recognizing that the attraction is signaling a dormant potential within us. They hold a key, in a way.
Okay, so that attraction, even if it feels a bit confusing or chaotic.
Jung saw it as potentially really significant.
Yeah.
Those forbidden qualities we're drawn to in others might actually be the medicine, so to speak, that we need for our own integration, our own wholeness.
Facing our shadow then helps us become more authentic, more alive.
That's the idea. By acknowledging and starting to integrate those shadow aspects, we become more complete.
So we're drawn to these missing pieces, these shadow aspects, in others, and this often happens through projection, right? That's another key Jungian idea.
Yes, projection. And this is where it can get, well, a bit tricky, especially early on in an attraction, that whole love at first sight feeling.
Yeah.
Jung suggested that a lot of what we're feeling in that initial rush isn't actually about the real person standing in front of us.
Wait, so we're not falling for them?
Not entirely, not yet. We're often falling for what we project onto them. Our own hopes, our dreams, our unmet needs, maybe even our past wounds and desires. We unconsciously paint a picture onto them.
Okay, that sounds complicated. So it's an unconscious thing. Our psyche is trying to get something it needs.
Exactly. It uses the other person like a screen. Say someone really craves safety and security, maybe because of past experiences.
Huh.
They might be instantly drawn to someone who just seems really stable and protective, whether they truly are or not long term.
Or if you're longing for adventure, you might project that onto someone who seems exciting and unpredictable.
Precisely. We see in them what our soul is searching for at that moment.
But projections, they don't last forever, do they? Reality kind of kicks in eventually.
That's the crucial turning point. The initial shimmer fades, and we start seeing the actual person, flaws and all. And that's where the real choice comes in.
Right. Do we back away because they didn't perfectly match our fantasy?
Or do we choose to stay, to open our hearts, and try to connect with the real person, soul to soul, as Jung might put it? That's arguably where real love begins.
So how do you tell the difference between, like, a healthy initial spark that includes some projection and just being totally lost in a fantasy that's going to crash?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It often involves time, self-awareness, and seeing how the connection evolves beyond that initial intensity.
Okay. So those initial projection-fueled attractions aren't necessarily bad then. They can actually be like a doorway.
Exactly. A doorway leading towards potential growth, towards learning more about ourselves, and maybe towards a much deeper kind of intimacy if both people are willing to see beyond the projections.
Okay. And what about synchronicity? That's another fascinating Jungian concept.
Ah, yes. Synchronicity. Those weird, meaningful coincidences. The ones that feel too perfect to be just random chance.
Like meeting someone significant on a train you almost missed, or bumping into an old flame just when you were thinking about them, or a stranger saying exactly the thing you needed to hear.
Those kinds of moments. Jung didn't just brush them off as coincidence. He saw them as, like whispers from the unconscious.
Whispers suggesting what?
Suggesting some kind of alignment, that our inner world and the outer world are momentarily in sync. And often attraction sparks in these moments because the psyche is particularly open, perhaps ready for healing or growth or a shift in perspective.
So instead of just thinking, wow, what a coincidence, Jung would say, pay attention. Ask yourself, what is this encounter trying to show me about myself right now?
Exactly. It adds a layer of meaning to those seemingly chance meetings.
Which leads us to another, maybe more challenging, but also quite compassionate idea from Jung, that we're often drawn to people who can actually help us heal our wounds.
Yes, this can be a tough one to grasp because, let's be honest, relationships that touch on our old wounds can be really difficult, painful even.
For sure. But the material we looked at suggests that even those connections, the ones that don't necessarily last or feel easy, they still serve a purpose in that larger journey of individuation.
Precisely. Jung saw relationships as potential containers for transformation.
Yeah.
They have this uncanny ability to bring out our best sides, but also our worst, our defenses, our insecurities.
They really push our buttons sometimes.
They do. They challenge us to confront the parts of ourselves that aren't authentic, the patterns we repeat. And even if an attraction leads to heartbreak,
Yeah.
Jung wouldn't necessarily see that as a failure. He might see it as a sign that something really deep within us was touched, brought to the surface, perhaps needing attention or healing.
So if we notice we're repeatedly attracted to people who somehow mirror our early wounds or difficult patterns.
Instead of just feeling stuck, Jung encourages curiosity. Ask, what is this pattern revealing about what still needs healing in me? How is my heart, my soul, trying to grow through this connection, even if it hurts right now?
That's a really profound way to look at it. It reframes the pain.
It does. And ultimately, this all points to Jung's core belief about the purpose of attraction. He thought it goes way beyond just finding romance or companionship.
It's really about wholeness.
Fundamentally, yes, that drive towards integrating all parts of ourselves. We're drawn, often unconsciously, to people who somehow awaken those forgotten or neglected or undeveloped aspects of our own being.
So it's not just about what they offer us, but more about what they spark within us.
Exactly. And that awakening, as the source material points out, isn't always comfortable. It can be challenging, confronting, even feel a bit scary sometimes. But Jung viewed it as a deeply sacred process.
A sacred process. Wow.
And when we start to approach attraction with that kind of awareness, looking at it through this lens,
Then every connection, every person we feel that pull towards becomes a potential learning opportunity.
exactly, an opportunity for healing, for self-discovery, for transformation. It shifts the focus from finding someone to complete me to how can this attraction help me become more myself?
Oh, okay. So bringing this down to earth, how do we actually use this understanding in our lives? What are the practical takeaways from Jung's perspective?
Well, the material suggests several key things. First, really embracing your own wholeness, accepting both the light and the shadow aspects of yourself.
To stop trying to be perfect or hide the messy bits.
Pretty much. The most attractive thing, in a deep sense, isn't perfection, it's authenticity. And that means getting to know your shadow, understanding your triggers, your flaws, not to beat yourself up, but just to be aware. Self-awareness is key.
Makes sense. And what about the anima and animus?
It's about consciously cultivating that inner balance, integrating both the softer receptive qualities and the stronger assertive ones, no matter your gender. Allowing yourself to be both gentle and bold, intuitive and logical.
And watching our projections, right? That seems crucial.
Hugely important. Trying to catch ourselves when we're idealizing someone, seeing them through the lens of our own needs instead of seeing who they actually are. Can we learn to love and appreciate people for their reality, not our fantasy of them?
That takes work. And then there's paying attention to synchronicity.
Yeah, noticing those meaningful coincidences, trusting your gut when an encounter feels significant and asking, okay, what might this mean for me?
And finally, just being willing to grow.
Absolutely. Being open to learning from everyone you're attracted to, even if the connection is brief or painful. Seeing each attraction as part of your journey.
So wrapping this up, Jung's perspective really turns the common idea of attraction on its head, doesn't it?
It really does. It's not just about finding that perfect match externally. It's fundamentally an internal journey toward wholeness.
And every person we're drawn to is like a potential guidepost on that path.
In a way, yes. They might reveal who we're trying to become, or reconnect us with parts of ourselves we lost along the way, or simply wake us up to something important within ourselves.
So love, or attraction, isn't an escape, according to Jung. It's actually a path to becoming more real, more awake.
Beautifully put, yes.
So here's a final thought for you, the listener, to maybe chew on. The next time you feel that spark, that undeniable pull towards someone, instead of immediately thinking, how do I impress them, or how do I win them over, maybe ask yourself a different question.
What part of me is this person waking up right now?
Exactly. What are they showing me about myself? Because the ultimate reminder here, perhaps, is that you were never actually incomplete to begin with. Attraction might just be the soul's way of remembering its own wholeness.